This is the Development Locker podcast, and this is your weekly investment in your development as you continue your transition through life and academy football. In Season 3, we bring you even more episodes, more guests who you can connect with, and even more insight into individuals like you who have a similar experiences in pursuing a career in the professional game. Over the next 11 months and 48 episodes, we aim to cover the key topics you will face along your journey. From the challenges you will have to overcome, the ups, the downs, and many experiences along the way. We will be here every week to discuss the current issues in your lives, support you in your journey, and continue your development to being the best version of you in your interviews from the locker. This week's guest is not only a good friend, but a fellow educator in Academy and the creator of the First Academy podcast. Neil Chadwick is Head of Education at Blackburn Rovers, a Category 1 academy that has produced a number of players for the first team. But much more than that, they are at the forefront of personal development as well as producing lifelong connections for future development too. In these connections, Neil has been able to call upon some great examples of academy graduates from various pathways to welcome onto his podcast. In doing so, allowing his guests to tell their different stories and allow his current cohort to learn from them, their experiences and what to expect in their next steps. Our next step is to bring you the conversation we had with Neil as he tells all about the idea, the best episodes to check out, and more in his interview from the locker. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, and I've got a very good friend on this evening with yourselves. And yeah, without further ado, we're going to get straight into the questions as we always do. So welcome to the podcast, Neil. I know you've listened to it before. I know you've got your own podcast. We'll come on to that in a bit. But why did you decide to do your own club stroke academy-based podcast that you did? Was it during lockdown that you did it, or was it just a bit after that?
I think we started it just after, didn't we?
Okay.
Obviously, yeah, we started it just after. I think I jumped on the bandwagon, to be honest. I think during that period, I think everyone was almost kind of jumping on it and become a bit saturated. But yeah, I just felt it was maybe something that we could kind of slot in with our personal development offer, really. We'd done one in the past, actually. So we'd done one about 5 years ago now with the academy psychologist, who's obviously he's moved on now. He doesn't work for us anymore. But he started one a couple of years ago, and he took a slightly different slant. So he kind of had guests on from the academy itself in different disciplines. So we done one based around growth and maturation and nutrition, and obviously and then he did an education one and with a bit of transition, involved in it. So that kind of got the flavour going with it, really, in terms of having a go, and then lockdown, and just thinking it was something different, really, to for the parents. Listen to a couple that had kind of, scholars that had graduated on programs, Blackburn, just thought, yeah, be a good angle to come in at, really, and just give boys a flavour. I think that, just if you don't make it as a footballer, or you don't go on to play first team football, you can still we could still be really fulfilled and have be success elsewhere. Hopefully, I think that kind of first series, we demonstrated that with the kind of diverseness of the guests we had on, really.
Yeah, and you talk about kind of flavour and the diverseness of it. Was the a particular one objective or a sole aim, or was it just kind of to go with the flow and kind of let it evolve as you just got different guests in, or was it you were really looking to target and aim that kind of journey from academy player to graduate to whatever their career went on to? Was there a particular aim or objective, or did you just want to go with the flow?
I think as it evolved, I did just tend to go with the flow, so it kind of became less planning based, really. But I think generally the objective was to kind of give boys a a flavour of, right, this is a lad, for example, who is 25, 26 years of age now, being in and give them a flavour of what their journey was like. We talk, we kind of touched briefly on the schoolboy experience, that bit of transition. So, transition from schoolboy to scholar, and how they adapted to that. What it's like at Blackburn, we're in that unique position where we've got digs still where lads live in. So we find that quite a big and challenging transition. So giving lads the flavour, how they felt with that, and then obviously focusing on that post scholarship transition as well, really. So it was the idea that we try and give lads a bit of a different idea what it looked like. But yeah, I think as it went on, it tended to just be a bit ad lib and wing it, but just trying to get out that there was loads of ups and downs with the stories that we heard. We had lad that been to America, lad that was playing in the first team who now has just been actually announced as club captain, Lewis Travis.
Wow.
He still had obviously ups and downs prior to him coming to us. So yeah, I think just to give that idea as well, that listen, you'll have loads of downs. It's about kind of finding out who you are on the journey, and just working hard and going with the flow.
And in terms of who do you feel benefited from that? Was it the guests you were asking to come on? Was it the listeners? Was it your current players, or players who had gone on and kind of flew the nest from Rovers? Or was it kind of a combination of all of those that you feel will have benefited from those episodes that you recorded?
Yeah, I think a combo, really, Lee, to be honest. I think primarily it was for parents and players. We felt that it was just a little bit of a different offer in the personal development program, where it's not the traditional kind of workshop that we ask players or parents to come into, or that as lockdown evolved, it was Zoom calls and video conferences type thing. We thought, when the boys and parents are on the way up to training, it's something they can probably easily access by just sticking on the radio, and just on the way up to training. Blackburn seems to be 40 minutes from anywhere. So we thought, not a bad little time in 40 minutes, whether it was on the way home or on the way back, gives you a bit of a flavour. So that primarily it was for that. But I learnt loads, to be honest, about myself throughout it, really. You hear stories from lads that you think, I didn't know that. I can't remember that. And I wouldn't have done it like that. Or, I wish I'd have done that differently. When lads kind of relay stories to you from when they were scholars. So yeah, learnt loads about myself on it. I think the lads learnt a bit about themselves as well that come and done it. And to be honest, I've kept in touch with all the lads a bit more frequently off the back of it as well. So I think it's probably ended up having a benefit with them, because it's like when you leave the club or you leave the game. You need to keep that kind of strong network, don't you, really, with different people. So I'd like to think that they've done that as well, really, and they know now that the door was always open anyway, but I think now it's even more accessible to them, given that we've been in touch a few times, we can get back in touch, really.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I've kind of pitched your idea with, the journey once a month that we do on here, and purely because of that kind of full circle thing, isn't it, of getting lads who, not just recently left the club, but, for a number of years and gone on and done whatever they've gone and done, and be able to come back and, rather than you or I talking to academy players and kind of that boring voice and the same face, it's good to have somebody different, somebody who's lived their life, lived their journey, the ups and downs, like you said before, and come back in and, talk to the young lads of going, look, I was sat where you were 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and it becomes more relevant, doesn't it? More current than kind of either of us or a retired pro coming in at 30, 40 going, oh, back in my day, blah, blah, blah. I think it really resonates with young academy players and, like you said, parents and other people who've got an interest in it. Yeah,
well, as I say, I just think it was, I thought that the probably one of the only bits I got right, really, was the fact that I had a guest on with me every, I say another member of staff hosting it with me, as you say, because I just think, I just told them to, I'd lead it, but, you just jump in as and when and just ask some questions. And I tried to make sure the guest was someone relevant to that lad throughout their journey.
Yeah.
That would have known maybe far more than I would, So a couple of the staff were actual direct coaches who, they're on the grass with them for 12, 14 hours a week. They probably know as much, if not more, than what I did, about all aspects of the lives. So that was really good as well, because they chipped in with things that I wasn't aware of, and so
Yeah.
getting viewpoints on things that happened kind of 6 years ago that you were completely and utterly blissfully unaware of. It was nice to have that kind of little bit of a buffer, really.
Favorite episode or guest? Not that you've got any favorites, and not for you to single out. You don't have to name names if you don't want, but if you got a particular favorite episode or a moment in an episode what really stood out and you thought, wow, that's really kind of profound, that's really, something that you weren't aware of, or something where you just thought, wow, that's going to be great material to kind of show to our academy lads. Is there a favorite moment or episode or guest?
I think they've all merged into one now, but I think one I'd probably pick out a lad called Ben Ashcroft.
Okay.
Probably more so in the news I've had in the past week. I've just kind of learned that he's basically he was a scholar with us for he was a player with us for a number of years. He was a scholar, and he got released. He was a goalkeeper. He ended up being too small, as is unfortunately the case with a lot of goalkeepers that kind of get released. But he kind of joined the club as a part-time coach very quickly, and his coaching. He accelerated the coaching ladder really quickly. To be honest, he'd done his B license as a first-year pro. That we kind of helped him get on. He joined the club part-time, done some, and then obviously joined the club full-time, which was great. Got the chance to go to Fleetwood as head of academy goalkeeping, which was a great opportunity for him to kind of fly the nest from Blackburn, where he'd been for kind of 12 years or whatever it was. And I've just heard this week he's obviously got a job at Newcastle, so he's gone in as academy goalkeeping coach at Newcastle. So
I saw that on the Training Ground Guru LinkedIn page. Really good journey, really good story, that one.
And I just think, brilliant. Brilliant. He's obviously he's tested himself by leaving his comfort zone with us, because it's easy, and it sometimes just stick in your comfort zone.
Well, I was going to ask that. Do you feel that's probably integral to his? He's clearly a really good lad and really good at his job. But do you think that's been integral to his journey so far and his upward curve in a relatively short period of time in terms of testing himself? Like you said, he could have easily stayed with you guys and potentially gone through the academy system, being YDP goalkeeper coach, then PDP goalkeeper coach, and maybe have aspirations for the first team. But do you feel it's integral that he's got different experiences with yourself, then at Fleetwood, and now the next stage? Do you feel that's really important?
Yeah, I do. And, not one for necessarily saying you want to jump ship all the time, but yeah, definitely. Especially for a young lad who's obviously still learning his trade a little bit and going into different environments and seeing maybe what works, maybe what you've put in place at Blackburn. Are you going to be able to kind of transfer that across and carry it across, or do you have to tweak it? Do you have to adapt to Fleetwood's environment? Is he going to have to now adapt to Newcastle's? Is he going to be able to imprint what he wants to imprint, to an extent, obviously, in different clubs. So, yeah, definitely meeting loads of new people, interacting with different boys and different parents, and all them things I think that come with just kind of probably interacting with different people. But I think probably with the stand-up moment in the podcast was when he told me that we told him he wasn't getting a contract, and I think he knew.
Okay.
He knew he wasn't going to get one because he knew size wasn't on his side. And, he was quite a confident lad, to be fair to him. And I just remember he said, he reminded me of the story of when, I must have gone into the changing rooms, just probably post-release, maybe, a couple of days after the lads have had news, whether they've been kept on or not. And changing room was full. And you know what it's like when you walk into a changing room as a member of staff. Only member of staff, and, that's their kind of area, isn't it? You know what I mean? You're their den. And, let's just say he was a little bit outspoken, a little bit cheeky, a little bit arrogant, maybe with his opinion about, the club, football in general, the club, bit of a bravado, type thing. And I kind of tried to reassure him that, come on, listen, could be the best thing that happened to you. He kind of talked about, I'll just go and work in Tesco, and, just kind of putting that real brick wall up in bravado. Got a few giggles and a few laughs from the lads, and you try and give him some words of advice, but for him to come back and remind me of that story and then say, do you know what you said was right? You were right. I was a bit of an idiot when I said that. I was a bit of an idiot when I kind of jumped back at you and said this or said that. And I'm glad I kind of took not just my advice, but, everyone's advice that was offered to him really at the time. Just go away and reflect, and it might not be football play, career playing career might not be for you. You might not be able to go and do it. You might need to look very quickly at alternatives. And fair play to him, he did that very quickly, to be honest. Straight on his B license. In that summer, and he hasn't looked back really, to be honest. So yeah, I think that was a nice moment, to be honest.
Sounds superb, that one. Yeah, I mean it's I saw it just today actually, and it's just even more evidence of that. You don't have to wait to kind of wait too long to get back in the system. And sometimes, as we know from famous examples, those playing careers that were cut short for whatever reason sometimes can go on and make the better coaches. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be a successful journey continuing on. And yeah, look forward to following that story. And yeah, it's good that that's kind of stood out on your podcast, and that he's wanting to come on and give back. And yeah, you never know, in a couple of years time, might get him back on, and it might be moving on to somewhere else, or moving up the career ladder from a coaching perspective. I'm sure you'll know him better than me, and that he's obviously impressed quite a few people everywhere he's been. So yeah, that's a great story to tell.
Well, you never know. He could end up being my boss in 10 years. So far up the ladder, he could end up coming in and could he be my boss?
Maybe that's why you said it's your favourite episode. Maybe yeah, get that in there.
Method in the madness, mate. Method in the madness.
So you mentioned before about the reason behind your podcast. You'd listen to some podcasts, as we probably all did during lockdown and COVID. Is there any podcasts that are your go-to ones, either football or non-football ones, that you feel would be good for our listeners to tap into? Is the any kind of go-to ones that are a bit off the beaten track, or some classic ones that you just think, yeah, that's my every Monday morning on the way into work, I'm listening to the latest episode of that podcast?
Yeah, I think the obvious one really is the High Performance podcast, isn't it? I think with Mr. Humphreys, that's the go-to and the obvious one, just because of the variety of guests that they've had on. It's not just necessarily been sport related. They've had all kind of guests, haven't they, from all walks of life, all kind of within business, etc., that have been a real success. I'm not going to lie, the ones that were football related were obviously piqued my interest a little bit more, but there was definitely some little golden nuggets in some of the other ones I listened to within that. So that's the obvious one. That was a great one. Part of what gave me the idea about an academy graduate one actually was to listen to the Football Journeys podcast.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, no, I actually met Fraser Franks a few times, and we've done a course together a couple of years ago. So I got quite friendly. We got chatting with him, and so that's probably why I jumped onto that one. Just interested to see what he had to say, and me being a Liverpool fan from a personal perspective, that was quite an interesting one, because they follow a few lads, graduates from Liverpool specifically.
Yeah.
I can't remember what cohort it was, but you know of the lads. So that was an interesting one to listen to. And then that you mentioned the Training Ground podcast before. That's been an interesting one, isn't it? Specifically around all aspects of performance.
Mm-hmm.
Not even the Gold Dust one as well.
Yeah. I've listened to that. I've not read the book, but certainly the podcast has been really, really informative.
Yeah, again, just a bit, probably an obvious one, but I just found, particularly with the Gold Dust one, and just quite laid back, just quite informative. Easy to listen to. Sometimes you can podcast on and turn them off after 20 minutes because they're a little bit kind of too sudden or whatever. But that one I found pretty good. To be fair, yeah. So definitely they were some give me the inspiration for what I did anyway. And
then, going back to your podcast and other ones like it, so I'm sure most of our listeners have heard of the High Performance one. It's been talked about a few times on here. But so in terms of what do you feel academy players, graduates, young professionals will get from these platforms, from those podcasts? Because you mentioned before about just putting it on the radio on the way into train, on the way home. What do you feel that lads are going to get from listening to those and tapping into other sports, or like you just said, not necessarily anything sport related, but still inspirational, motivational individuals who've had success in their lives?
I just think they'll get a feel for a variety of kind of different athletes' journeys and challenges that they face. I just feel that listen, it's the way of life now, isn't it? You've got to embrace modern day technology, and as I said mentioned before, like the podcast kind of industry's a little bit saturated in a way, isn't it? But such is the way of life now, and technology. It's so accessible for lads to be able to just stick it on, as you say, in the car, half an hour here, half an hour there. So I just think that if it's that easily accessible, the ones I've listened to, I've picked up little golden nuggets left, right, and centre. And I'm sure if lads have kind of switched on enough to listen, they will pick up little golden nuggets. I say, mine were only just a kind of drop in the ocean, really. Without the 5 episodes that I reflect and probably could have done better with them as well. But even some of the conversations I had back in the club with our lads and our scholars, some of the few that did actually listen kind of said, "Oh, that was it. I didn't know that. Or that was quite interesting. Or that was quite interesting. Or didn't realise he was a East and the problems he faced when he finished." So I'd like to think that even for the lads that listened, that they'll have certainly picked up from the ones I did. So yeah, I'm sure if they listen to some of the ones we've mentioned there, they'll pick up golden nuggets left, right, and centre.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And talking of success, in your opinion, what do you regard as success for academy players? Is it staying in football? Is it just being the best person they can be? Is it pursuing their dreams in whatever avenue that may be? What do you regard? Because you're very experienced in academy football and your position there at Blackburn Rovers. What do you perceive to be success, and what you can kind of rest assured and kind of sleep easy at night knowing that lads have achieved success? What shape and form does it come in for you?
I think you've just said it before. I think it's just to be successful in whatever it is that you decide that you're going to go into ultimately. I don't think it has to be tied down and exclusive to football. It's really hard for lads at that age that's all they think, that the kind of they identify with, don't they? That's all they identify with, being a footballer. But I think without doubt, the lads that are successful are the ones that I think have kind of come to realise that they're content and happy with what they've got. The first podcast we did, the oldest lad, 7 now, he went to America, scholarship in America, stayed out there. He's got a little one on the way, works in real estate.
Okay.
Completely not really like miles away from football. Had loads of injuries when he was there, to be fair as well. But just like listening to him say, "Yeah, I'm not coming home. What? I'm not coming back to England." Like, it's got me like little thing. Just some of the stories he was telling about where his wife's parents were living, and he was traveling across there for Christmas, and just sounded like he'd found his happiness, he'd found his fulfillment, and it wasn't necessarily football related. Another lad obviously released and done a law degree straight away, started a law degree. He completely just, no, football's not for me. Just graduated actually this year as in law, and couldn't sound happy. He was pretty fulfilled with his life and everything he had going on in it. So I think it's easier, isn't it, when lads mature? I think really that they realise that there is more to life. So that's the biggest challenge, isn't it? Really, when they're in the scholars, is trying to kind of just drop little things in for them to know that really. But yeah, I think to answer your question in short, it's just total fulfillment and happiness in whatever they do.
Yeah, and then continue with the success theme there. In your opinion, because you've seen many cohorts go through, many lads either get released or go into other football clubs, stay with your football club, and get many, many first team appearances. Do you feel that it's possible for a lad to have success in pursuing a football career only, and really not want to develop themselves off the pitch, to kind of be resistant to those, being the best person that they can be off and on the pitch? Do you feel that's even possible? And have you got any examples of lads who've done that, who solely purposely just focused on that football, had a degree of success, but then not really developed themselves off it, and what the consequences of that have been?
Yeah, listen, I think ultimately time will tell, won't it? Because obviously, when they finish up playing and they retire at whatever age that is, time will tell whether they're completely been utterly fulfilled and whether they could have done other things. But yeah, it probably is possible, isn't it, to just kind of the flow if football's going all right for you and just kind of continue on. I've got loads of examples of them. You know, we've just lost Darrell Lenihan, our club captain, 28 years of age, just gone to Middlesbrough. You know, his contract ran out this year, and he made a big decision to go and join Middlesbrough. But you know, I can't really recall him doing much. You know, away. You know, I might hopefully stand here corrected, but I can't really think of anything that he would have done in addition to anything outside of football when he kind of graduated as a scholar. And you know, he's gone on and played 250 odd games for Blackburn and been club captain, and obviously got a great move to Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
28, and obviously picked up a good contract that'll take him into his 30s. You know, sure he could turn around and go, well, I've not done anything, and it's kind of worked out well. Time will tell later on in his life. We've got a couple. Lewis Travis, who's just been named club captain for us, another graduate, 24 years of age, done ever so well. But again, just for the past kind of 6 years since he graduated, just not really been interested in doing much apart from kind of, you know, being a professional footballer and living that professional footballer's life. But you know, we could argue that in a minute it's worked out for him.
Do you feel that they've gone on to have those successes, which it certainly sounds like, because they've fully focused on football and not, you know, in terms of probably more of a psychological question, really, you know, in terms of personality and traits. But do you feel that they've gone on to have that level of success because they've not had any distractions, because they've not had to dilute their effort, their attention onto something else?
It's hard to know, isn't it? I think there could be thousands of reasons why you can't go and have success. You know, one thing I'd say about Lewis, for example, is that he had adversity before he joined Blackburn. You know, he was released at Liverpool, or you know, left Liverpool as a first year scholar. You know, just 16, and so you could look back and say that, you know, he had adversity, you know, early on as a young player, that he had to move from Blackburn, and that's what gave him the kind of impetus to kind of kick on. Because we always talk about that, don't we? As well, we always talk about, you know, going on that rocky road, and it's never just a nice straight line from, in terms of success. It's up and down. It's bumpy. You know, Darragh even coming across from Ireland at 16 years of age. I talked about transition before, a lad's moving into digs, and I'm only talking about moving from like Liverpool all night. Yeah, a lad comes over at 16 from Ireland. That's huge. So I'm sure there's been lots of different things on the way in terms of like upset and sacrifices that they've had to make that's helped them. But listen, I'm sure as they get older and they have other priorities in life, like families and things like that gives them distractions as well. And
True.
And I think it becomes probably a mindset of football's not the most important thing in my life. So I think just by natural association, as you get older and you get more responsibility in your life, it becomes less important, and therefore you potentially probably switch off a little bit more, relax a bit more, and can go in a little bit more fresh. I guess. The other thing I had an interesting chat about this the other day, actually, was with the staff at the club. And we almost feel at Blackburn we're in a bit of a strange position, especially for someone like me, who's trying to open lads' eyes to, you know, you need to plan for the future, and you need to maybe do, you know, dual career planning and be open-minded and develop yourself holistically. The challenge for us, I think, is we've had such good success rates in terms of pro contract conversions, like in the past couple of years. You know, really, really healthy rates of lads. It's probably up to 70% of lads that have gone graduated scholarships have gone on and signed pro deals. Is that I think the biggest challenge now is lads that are coming into scholars almost just see that, oh, well, look at the cohort 2 or 3 ahead of me.
Yeah.
And they're still there, and they're still in the 23. So they almost go with the mindset of just get over the line, get my pro, get over the line. And they kind of forget that, well, that might only last 2 years, 3 years, and then it could start again, or you could be kind of, you know, be asked to, you know, not get renewed after 2 or 3 years, really. So that's kind of quite a big challenge as well. I think by association, we've just, not saying we've created a beast, because we're just taking lads that we feel that have got potential, and the 23s structures allowed clubs to do that. But I definitely think it's added an additional challenge to staff like us in the clubs that have to, try and promote education and promote lifelong learning and holistic development. Lads will kind of always come back and go, yeah, but I got me pro, or look at them lads. We took 10 out of 12 last year as pros. So that was a really difficult group to kind of challenge in terms of, come on lads, let's start looking at what the future looks like. So yeah, that was just quite an interesting little kind of chat we had the other day.
No, it's interesting, and it's worthwhile, airing that as well and sharing it, because I think, outsiders looking in would go, oh yeah, you've got it made because a lot of your lads are turning pro, but then that causes, like you said, another challenge, another problem, because it's almost setting the example to your 16s, your current 18s, that, all right, yeah, well, they've handed out quite a lot, so I've got a good chance it's not going to be 1 in 10 or 50-50. I've got a 70-80% chance of getting a scholar. And then, like we've spoke about before, many different times, of then the next problem is, well, what are we doing yourself, in terms of academy football as well, of continuing the development journey as they go into the 23s now, and that becomes another major issue. So yeah, I mean, every success has another challenge, doesn't it? And it's good that you're sharing that, and I think it's a very interesting point. And kind of the final one on the success, I mean, there's very few, but there are some in terms of dual career planning. Do you feel it's possible to be actively planning or even potentially doing a dual career while a young professional, a scholar coming towards the end of his 2-year scholarship, that they can actually still doing it while playing? Do you think that's a realistic opportunity for them to do that?
Oh, 100%. As I say, I'm probably contradicting myself now, because obviously I've just been successful. But for me, that, yeah, absolutely, no question at all. Like, for all the reasons I probably just mentioned, really, it just gives you something to switch off from. It gives that ability to go home from training and maybe not have to think about that bad performance or bad day of training, or you can get absolutely kind of hoodwinked by the whole environment and get sucked into just the intenseness of it, that all you do is think about it. And having a different challenge, having a different focus is without doubt a way of being able to release yourself from, because let's face it, it's a pressurized environment, isn't it? I always think that sometimes we don't give enough credit to young lads that are in that environment, because it's so
No,
intense.
we don't.
You feel that like you're being judged all the time, constantly.
Yeah.
And we're the first to kind of, to reprimand them or talk about standards, or talk about that's not good enough or that's not good enough. But you forget sometimes that they're being judged constantly, and some of them haven't got the emotional intelligence still at that age to be able to handle and deal with that. So with all them things going on, sometimes you just take yourself out of that is a way of just releasing tension or energy.
I think in addition to that, though, I think there's not many working environments or careers or businesses that I can think of where you're saying there you're judged by 5 or 6 different departments, heads of departments, staff within those departments, and they're being challenged in uniquely different ways, from physical, psychological, nutrition, technical, tactical. And then to top it off, you've got you and I on their back about career development, personal development, education. I can't think of any other career, any other business, any other kind of walk of life where you'd be not under that scrutiny, but constantly being challenged by numerous different people and numerous different departments. You or I, you probably, you've got a line manager, you probably have 2 or 3 people who will be, challenge you in the right way, or wanting to, kind of drive your standards and drive theirs at the same time. But these young lads have got 5 or 6 departments all asking something of them. And I think we do forget that a lot. And that's every day. It's not just like, oh, right, it's, sports science are going to challenge you on a Monday. Psychology is going to challenge you on a Tuesday. It could be all in one day. And that's tough. I couldn't do it.
I think you forget as well about kind of the diversity of the staff within the game as well. Still, across the game, that's not disrespectful to obviously a lot of experienced staff still in the game that have got a lot to offer. But it's like that when people maybe have still got kind of old school, narrow-minded views that are quick to kind of fob people off if not something's not being done properly. There's a real mix in the game, I think, of, as you mentioned, sports scientists and psychologists there. You know, you know, a bit of a cliche, but you kind of associate them with being the young up and coming, you know, graduates of universities, people that may be, you know, similar to us really in a way, Lee, that kind of value holistic development and all these things that come with it. But you throw them right up alongside coaches in the game that just think you have to be focused on football constantly all the time and nothing else. And, you know, there's that much variety in the game of personality as well. It's a real challenge, even within one, you know, within one club. The variety of personality and philosophy on what they think a young lad should be doing. So yeah, we don't give them enough credit sometimes. Really challenging. But we've even got lads this year, first year pros. One's ended up going and, you know, doing his third A level this year. We've got a lad who's decided to go and do some language lessons, and he was talking to me the other week about it, that he's actually gone off to night school and done it in the evening. He said it's been brilliant. He's met all kinds of different people, and I think brilliant. That's what it's all about. You know, take yourself off from training for the day, go and spend your evening, you know, with some middle-aged guys trying to speak French and whatever as a 19-year-old lad. But brilliant for him to switch off and do it. And someone that's been injured for a long time as well. And he's actually talked about the fact that, you know, that's really helped me in terms of rehabilitation from his injury as well, by the way, because there's nothing worse, isn't there, than having a long-term injury and all you do is think about it and go home and think about it, and you try to do everything you can to maybe rush back or get back as quick as you can. But you know, you still have to have a life and enjoy yourself and develop yourself in other ways. And I think it's giving up opportunity to take his mind off that as well, really.
And with your years of experience as well, in terms of transitions, and I'm not just talking like, you know, ending football, going into alternative career, I'm talking like the micro transitions. So, you know, lads who've been released by Liverpool come to you, you know, then transition from the 18s to the 23s, then the going out on loan. That as a typical general example, but do you feel those numerous and varied transitions are really better preparing that individual for a career in the sport?
Yeah, without doubt. And you probably hit the nail on the head there by saying it's not even the kind of big obvious transitions, it's the real little micro transitions that I think are a big challenge that lads have to deal with, and the ones that deal with them the best are generally the ones that go and be successful. So like you say, it's not just about moving from one club to another. It might be moving between phases, mightn't it? As you say, 16 to 18s. You know, even we see it every year, and we're probably about to see it this week, really, the next week. We're just starting the season, aren't we, tomorrow? Or kicks off tonight, doesn't it? And you know, but we've had lads this week, for example, the last couple of weeks that have spent kind of 3-4 weeks with the first team and the, you know, first year pros. And, you know, without being harsh, they've probably just been up there because it's circumstantial, you know, because of numbers in the squad, etc. But they don't see that, and then all of a sudden they might spend 3 weeks up there, and then they're back down with the 23s, and that's a micro transition in itself, you know, going up for a period of time and then coming back down, and that's one we see constantly. Lads going up to train with the first team and then don't quite understand why they've come back down, and then they have to deal with that and feel like starting again. So yeah, I think the more that lads can be kind of challenged with little micro transitions, as you know that you use there. I'm going to pinch that one, by the way, micro transitions.
You can have that.
Yeah, but the more you can challenge them in that respect, the more you can kind of prepare them for disappointment. Because, you know, we probably have a couple of disappointed lads next week that have been with the first team all the way through pre-season, and then come match day squad tomorrow, they're not in it, and they're playing for our 23s tomorrow against Huddersfield. You know, and thinking, what's going on here? Been with the first team all week or all month? Well, that's the harsh reality of first team football, is that sometimes it's circumstantial. So deal with the disappointment and let's, you know, get back on it and you know, kick on.
And that's another area, I don't know about you, that's another area I know I'd struggle to deal with, and that just increases the respect I have week upon week, month by month, season by season, that, you know, they're constantly putting themselves out there. You know, we have a degree of normality to our day, our working week. You know, there might be a few curveballs here and there where we're tearing our hair out, but, you know, essentially we know where we're going to be, what's happening. No one's coming to you and going, oh, right, yeah, we need you to fill in a, you know, X club, Y club, what, you know you're going to be in the building, you know, kind of things remain constant. So for these lads who, like you said, they could be train up with the first team, and then they're just used as a man for training, for shape, for a walkthrough on a Friday, and then you're back with the 18, but actually you're on the bench for the 18s because we might need you for the 23s on Monday, and those little micro transitions on a weekly basis. Yeah, credit to them because they deal with it very well. I mean, some may think that they don't deal with it well, and obviously there's a support network to deal with that. But from an outsider looking in, they deal with it, far better than I ever would. So yeah, massive respect to them.
I think it's the challenge of the staff, though, isn't it, as well, Lee? Then to be actually, how do you dress it up to them as well? Because it'd be easy to kind of just kill them, wouldn't it? And absolutely rain on the parade and say, oh, by the way, you're only going up because of numbers. Lads that go up, sometimes you think, they must be buzzing on cloud nine, and it's an opportunity to show first team gaffer what they can do. But if we went in and killed them and said, listen, don't worry, you're only up there because of numbers. So I think it's a real fine balance of staff as well, kind of letting lads maybe, think that maybe they're making the step when you really know that, well, he has only gone up there because of numbers. So it's just that fine balance in it and motivating lads as well to experience it, but know they're going to come back down. I think that's the thing.
Yeah. And it's that time of season now where, focusing on the 18s and in terms of the new apprentices who've come on for pre-season. Like you said, we're about to start the season for academy football in the next week, 10 days. In terms of any advice for those first years, not just at your club, but up and down the country, at every academy, have you got any kind of golden pieces of advice for them? Because you've seen many cohorts come through. I'm sure you've seen many mistakes, or you've recognised certain traits in first years who've gone on to do well in their second year, got that professional contract. Any kind of tips or advice that you want to give those first years who are just about to start the football season?
We've just mentioned a few of them, to be honest. We've mentioned, haven't we? I've got it. I've wrote down actually. Don't fall into the kind of I'm a footballer mentality. That's definitely one for me. It's easy to get carried away with it, isn't it? I think you've got to come in really kind of open-minded and humble the fact that you're not a footballer, you're an apprentice. Or you've got to look at it a slightly different way. I think. That's one. I think, like we just literally mentioned, if you get called up to 23s or first team, try and kind of keep your feet on the ground and realise that it's probably circumstantial to start with, unless you do really well, and don't kind of hit the ground really hard when you come back down. Seen that loads, first years that have been in the building for a month, and then the first team are calling them up, like we just said, and it's like, whoa, first, but and they come back down. It's like, you went up there because they needed numbers. So definitely don't get yourself too carried away and keep your feet on the ground. And then I think the one I've always found with first years is it's similar to the last one. You've got to deal with disappointments because you might not play. I think that's the big one, and that's the one we always mention at induction. Probably one of the biggest challenges. That's why I think 16s to 18s is a tough transition, because lads might have gone through from 9 to 16 playing week in, week out.
Yeah.
Being a player that plays week in, week out, Sunday and then Saturday when you're under 16, constantly playing. They've never had the disappointment of going into an under 18 squad and suddenly second year scholars are ahead of them, or a 16 that was in the 15 suddenly kind of comes back for pre-season and overtakes you, maybe, because they're not just looking forward, they're looking back as well, aren't they? So that's the one I've always found interesting. Lads that have come in, have always played, and then suddenly find themselves out the match day squad in the first kind of under 18 games program, and that is a real tough one to take. So yeah, I would say try and deal with that disappointment and try and kind of set yourself up to the possibility that may well happen.
And then on the flip side, those lads who've graduated from your academy, from ours, and for the ones all up and down the country who at this current time they still find themselves either without a club, or they're on trial, or they're just kind of training for pre-season purposes to get that fitness and waiting for that call to come. Have you got any advice for some of those graduates who are just finding themselves in between clubs at the moment?
Reach out really is the kind of big one, I would say. Don't think they realise, do they, half the time? There's so many good people working in football clubs. I'm biased. I always think the people within education and player care are always keen to know what's going on. So reach out to the staff that They're always there to support even when you've left. And just don't be afraid of putting yourself out there. Really, that's sometimes the best opportunities come, don't they? When you just put yourself out there and be prepared for the worst that can happen is you get a no. I think the more people you can reach out and network with, the more opportunities that you'll get. Sometimes the more risk people will take with you because they know you might be a reliable, good lad who's willing to kind of to put a shift in and work hard. So I think ultimately it's about reaching out, isn't it? Really, to as many people as you can, and have no shame in a way, isn't it? Really, you
yeah.
If you want to have a career and you want to be successful, whatever it is, sometimes you can't have any shame, given how cutthroat the environment is. You've just got to kind of expect the worst you might get is a no. That's it. Move on.
No, I mean, I think that's beautifully put. I think that's I know from our conversations, many conversations we've had, and most people who are involved in, education, welfare, safeguarding, player care, and to be fair, every single member of staff in academy football, I think that's the big frustration, is it not reaching out, not necessarily asking for help, but just going, I'm between clubs. Any chance I could, just come into training just to keep myself ticking over, or, could I just come in and use the gym just to do, a few bits to tie me over, give me a bit of purpose, a bit of, motivation to get up in the morning, come in and, come to the training ground type of thing. And like you were saying, I don't think I've ever witnessed any member of academy or club staff say no to a lad yet, whether they've been released on good terms, bad terms, early, late, whatever the circumstance of that decision, then I've never witnessed or, been privy to any academy or club member of staff going, yeah, no, it's not really a good idea if you come in training with us, or, yeah, there's not really anything I can do for you. There's always something, even if it's just a chat, isn't it? It's something.
Yeah, without doubt. You just have to be patient, don't they? These lads, we know the numbers. There's not enough numbers in the game to, or not enough numbers within squads as this is to fulfill all the pros that are coming through. So be patient. You know that you might have to go back and start again and start playing part time and get yourself a little part time job before it happens for you, Gren. That's another thing, isn't it? But yeah, I don't think there's anyone that would say no to anyone, really.
No. And then final message. So we always allow our guests to give one final take-home message. So this is your chance. It can be football, can be education, can be career, can be life-related. What lasting message do you want to leave our listeners with?
Kill me there, mate, because haven't even put me right on the spot with that one, haven't you? No, I think I've probably go back to things I've said right throughout. Really, be humble as one. Prepare for the worst in a way. I know that might sound really pessimistic of me, but yeah, prepare for the worst. Expect the worst and hope for the best. I think that's what I would say. And like we talked about here, look to develop yourself in all areas. Don't become too narrow-minded and focused just on football. Look to read. Go and read. Go and listen to podcasts. Go and do anything that kind of takes you away from the intenseness of the environment.
That's great advice. And yeah, in terms of speaking to our listeners now, we will share the Blackburn Rovers Academy podcast, if that's all right with you, Neil. And so our listeners can check in with that and listen to some of the journeys, some of the experience that your players have had over the seasons. And I think I know it'll really add value. So yeah, it's not just about the high performance podcasts and those ones that are getting probably millions of listeners every week. You can also find
the low performance ones as well.
No, not low performance, but even in the most random ones, you can take something. You can take something from, and yours is really good. And yours was probably ahead of the game, where it was pretty sure, without, I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure yours was probably the first over the line in terms of from within an academy doing something like that. So yeah, massive respect, and I take my hat off to you for doing that and leading the way. And yeah, we'll share those details on our social media streams. And then I think before we finish off, an exciting announcement that you're going to be helping me out and co-hosting a few editions of the journey this season. So it'll be good to have you on board, and hopefully you'll be able to dig me out and ask far better questions than I can.
Yeah, mate, I look forward to that, to be fair. Yeah, as I say, I'm really chuffed that you've asked me to do that. I'm sure maybe listeners will get in touch and go, no, let's not have him. No, it'd be really good. I think we discussed the idea, didn't we? And I think sometimes you've got a wealth of experience, and I think there's no better sometimes than having a couple of people to kind of bounce off and ask questions, and you might ask something that I've thought of and jump off the back of it. So I think it just makes it a little bit more relaxed and informal as well, doesn't it? So
yeah, it does. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, we'll be still doing the edition of The Journey every month. Neil will be joining me as co-host. So yeah, watch this space. And so before that, I just want to thank you personally and on behalf of our listeners for giving up your time this evening. It's been great to have you on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you anyway. But yeah, it's been great to have you on. And thanks again.
Oh, cheers, Lee. Really enjoyed it, mate. Cheers.
A double-pronged attack on this one. Yes, we wanted to introduce you to the podcast from Blackburn Rovers and Neil's insight, but also to introduce you to our new co-host for the Journey feature we bring you each month. Neil will be joining us on the other side of the mic, bringing his expertise from one of the leading academies in the country and his probing questions too. Each month, we'll be bringing you academy graduates from a variety of pathways to continue their development as well as yours. In addition, with some alternative guests from different sports and careers who have been on a similar yet different journey that will impact upon your own journey. Be sure to check out our socials for the first guest on the journey at the end of this month. But until then, continue to join us next week for more psychologically based conversations as we bring you yet another interview from the locker. Thanks for listening to this week's episode, and we hope you have taken many key messages away with you. But the next part is down to you now by putting these into action. If you would like today's episode, feel free to tell us on our various social media platforms where you can find us at thelocker_UK. For guest recommendations, future topics to be discussed, or you simply want to reach out, you can do so by emailing us on thedevelopmentlocker@gmail.co.uk. Remember to share this episode and our platform with your teammates, friends in football, or anyone you feel would benefit from it. So, what are you waiting for? But you're not done yet, as we look forward to seeing you next week when we bring you another interview from the locker.